So in Lab 8, we're going to go back to using ArcGIS desktop version. And so there's a couple things I want to just walk you through, even though the directions, I had a student go through them, and I think they're pretty clean. There's probably a couple glitches or things that you'll be helped by seeing. So the lab is in the Thursday More PLSS folder, and the file is zipped. So I use Mozilla, and the process of opening in Moodle tends to be different depending on what browser you're using. So when I double click this, it gives me the zip folder. I choose OK. I can see that it's downloading. It may take a little while to download based on your speed, so I'm going to pause this while it does that. And one of the things you'll notice while it is downloading is that you will get the zipped icon, and I have my download set to go to my desktop, which can get a little messy, but I can find them easier. So I see the zipped icon on the desktop, and I also see this temporary folder as the file is downloading. One of the things students sometimes do is try to open this thinking that the file is done. So it won't be finished until this temporary file disappears on your desktop, so you just kind of have to go get a cup of coffee or hang in there or something. Okay, so that temporary file disappeared, and I have a zipped file, and I earlier created a folder called GIS Lab 8. And I'm going to go ahead and put the zipped file in there. I'm going to open up my Lab 8 folder, and I'm going to extract that folder into my Lab 8 folder. Or I'm going to, sometimes it'll say extract to here, depends on which program you're running. Okay, so what I have is my original folder, and I have the new unzipped folder. Now, one of the things that happens is if I open up my zipped folder, I can actually get into the folder. I can see the map document called the MXD. I can see the lab, and I can see the data folder. What's very unfortunate is if I open up my map document from inside the zipped folder, you will see an issue with reading data inside a zipped folder. So when the ArcMap document opens and my data is in the zipped folder, you get what is called the broken data icon, or you get an exclamation point, and basically it's saying, I don't know where the data is, I can't find it. And so you may actually still see the base map, because my base map is streaming from the internet. It's not part of the data folder. So I'm going to go ahead and close that MXD. Can't save the changes. I'm going to close this folder. I'm going to go back in here. Now I'm going to open up the ArcMap document that's inside the folder that is not zipped. So this time I actually can see the data layers that are on my map, and I don't have the red exclamation points. One way to check to make sure you know where your data is being drawn from is to click on the list by source. We call this the tuna can. So if I click there, I can see that the data that in my map is being drawn from my computer at home, which is the C drive, and this is the path name to the data. It's on my desktop. It's in a file called GIS 151 Lab 8, and I have two folders, PLSS. I'm not sure how that happened. I think when I zipped it, it created a second folder. So that is the data that that is in that data drive folder. So this is called the pathway or the address to the data. If I go up here to File, Map Document Properties, I can see that I've set my map document to store relative pathways. And what this means is, as long as, I'm going to move this down, as long as I don't move my MXD out of the position that it's in with respects to my data, it doesn't matter whether this is called Lab 20, Lab 9, and whether this is on the C drive, on my flash drive, on my desktop at school. The data connection will maintain. So one of the things I always do when I create a map document or data is I make sure that I have a folder excuse me, where all of the data and the MXD are together in one place, and I never move this. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to save this MXD under your name. Typing in the dark here. All right. And what you should see is a new MXD inside your PLSS folder adjacent to the PLSS data. And so now I can see that I'm actually working on the new MXD. This is a really nice thing to do. In case I mess this up, I can go back to the original. And if I mess the whole thing up, what I can do is delete this folder completely and extract the original again. So having your zip file kind of keeps your original data in place. So I'm going to use that back arrow to go back to my original projection. If I hit the globe, it's going to go to the full extent of the map. And because I have the world map layer focused on a projection of Oregon, it's going to actually give me a much bigger view of the world than I want. So one thing I can do if I get too zoomed in or too lost is right-click Oregon and zoom to that layer, and that will take me back to a nice map extent. One thing you're going to need to do for this lab is to add data, and ArcMap needs to know where the data is, and to do that you have to make data connections. So to add a data layer, you click one way to do this is to click the Add button, and I'm going to make a connection to my folder. And if I had my flash drive, I would open up my computer and click on the flash drive, make a connection to that. However, mine is on the desktop, so I'm going to I already see that, but I'm going to make a connection to my desktop, and then I'm going to click on desktop, and I can see all of the data. So if you had clicked on, if you had made a connection through the connect a folder to, let's say, my flash drive or my data is on the E drive. If I had connected here, let's do the backup because that's kind of a mess. If I connected to that drive, I would say OK, and then I would be able to see all of my folders that are in that drive, and then I could go find the data that way. But I want to go to my desktop, and now I want to add a data layer called cities. So I'm going to double click and open that, and open this, and open my flash drive. I'm going to click on cities, and I can add that layer to my map. Now the cities are in a different projection. They're in a geographic coordinate system, North American 1983. I'm not going to choose a transformation. I'm going to let ArcMap fix that for me. And there's my city layer. If I wanted to see what the projection of the map is, I can open up my properties for that data frame, and I can see that my data frame is set to a projected coordinate system. Let's just move up here so you can see that whole folder. So I'm in a projected coordinate system. I'm in a state system, and Oregon apparently is odd, and we have our own little folder, and I'm in whatever that North American Datum 1983 Harn, Oregon, Lambert projection. So there's my data frame projection. So I have some cities on here. I can change the icon by just clicking that. Cool. Let's see, I'm just going to change that and choose OK. So I can change my cities to be something really ugly. I can change the color, I can change the size, type in a size if I want. I can do that, make them really small. I'm going to ask you to turn on the origin, the Willamette baseline, the Willamette meridian and the baseline, and zoom in. So I use the plus tool and just drag. There you go. And so I've got my baseline here, and then you can turn on the township and range, and I can roll my wheel and change out a little bit. There we go. And so I can see doesn't say T and R, but that's Township 1 North, Range 1 East, Township 1 North, Range 1 West, Township 1 North, Range, or 1 South, Range 1 West. So I can turn that layer on. These layers are huge, and so one of the things I do is I often turn them off if I need to manipulate the map, and then I can turn them back on later. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to turn the township and ranges back on. And now the labels have gone away, and that's because I set the labels to scale so that the labels don't show up until you're scaled into, oh, I think it's 1 to 250,000, something like that. So I've got to go in. There I am, so I can see my scales. You can turn on your section layers, and so there's the section for each map, and these I also scaled so that those labels don't come on until you're at a scale of about 1 to, I think I might have set it to 200,000. So you can see how the section lines start in the right hand corner of 1 and go on in. The other thing you're going to do then is to add a layer of the donation land claim. So I'm going to go up here and go add data, and luckily it remembers where the last place was that I went to add data, so I don't have to navigate all the way. Sometimes if I have multiple copies, I do want to make sure that I am in the right folder. I may have forgotten that I started on my desktop and then I went to my flash drive. So I'm going to add the donation land claim files. Again, I don't care about that transformation. And these are the polygons that show those donation land claims. So a couple things I want you to be able to do is to make those transparent, and oh, that's ugly. Give them a color that makes them very visible. And it would really be helpful then to also add the number of the land claim. So if I click on the ID tool and click here, it says that that is donation land claim 55. So it would be really helpful to have those numbered. So if I right click properties, I can go to labels. You want to make sure that labels are featured is checked. And then this tells me what field do I want to label. And by that, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. If I open up the attribute table with the donation land claim, I have all these different fields. So I could label this by the ID number, the township, the north, the range, the west, the section, the XY coordinates. I don't want to do that. I want to label it by this field. So sometimes, actually all the time, I open up my attribute table and take a look at my fields just to kind of get a sense of what the data is that I'm working with. So anyway, I'm going to label the fields. I'm going to choose donation land claim as my label. I want to go ahead and make that the same color, and I'll make it really big. There we go. So there's my donation land claims with my labels turned on. So then once you get the work down through the worksheet or the lab, I want you to find an example in Oregon of a donation land claim that is meets and bounds, or a donation land claim that kind of illustrates French long lot. And we know that people settled along the river, so that's kind of where I would look first. And so look at all of this cluster of donation land claims. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I made my city dots way too small, so I'm going to go ahead and make those a little bigger. And red and purple looks really horrible, but red and green, or purple and green, are usually pretty complementary. Wow. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom into an area that I would like to show. And I think I'm also going to add the city label so that people will know which city this is focusing on. Again, make sure the labels are chosen. I'm going to choose the name city, and I knew that from looking in the attribute table, honestly. There we go, and I'm going to choose OK. So that's St. Paul. It doesn't show up very well, but maybe if I take Oregon and make that color a little different, because that's really an ugly Oregon color. That looks a little better. Okay, so now I have a focus for my map, and I'm going to change from what we've been working in as data view to my layout view. And I have set up an inset map for you that has a raster data file that shows elevation. And that's this data frame right here, and it's that raster is overlaid on the map of Oregon. And so what I can do is insert a title, and the title is set in my parameters, although it doesn't seem to be inserting here. There it is. It's set to the name of the folder that I set up earlier, so I'm going to double click that title. Go back to here and try to double click. You can see those little lines are on the outside of the map. Sometimes when you record this stuff it tends to slow down. And what it's saying is set the title to the name of the document. So I'm going to change that and call this, let's see, okay, and I want to change the font. I kind of like that purple. I don't usually use purple, I really just use dark gray, but I'm just going to get fancy here. Choose that OK, apply, OK, and we're going to let that kind of redraw. And there's my title. Often there's kind of people will put a title way up here, kind of floating in space, and it's really a good idea to set your title a little closer to your map top. There we go. So I have a title here. I'm going to add, as it draws, I'm going to add a north arrow. Nice little discrete north arrow. And this is just a graphic, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it up into my map where it's got a nice little space. I could also, I never use purple, but you know I don't get to play that much, so I'm going to put this on here. There you go. And then I want to, it's still too tall. Move it down. I think yours will draw much faster as you're not busy trying to record. Alright, and then I'm going to insert a scale bar, and you know it's kind of an issue sometimes with the scale bars because they're kind of where to place them, and we'll play around with placing them. So right now, just for visibility, I'm going to set it here. And then I'm going to add some text, which is going to be my name and the date. The text box comes in really small on your map. There it is. And so I'm going to try to type something in that, and then I just kind of throw text, just kind of any letters in there, and then I double click this, and then I can work on the actual text box. Okay. ArcGIS defaults to center justify, and most everything you do is going to be left justified. And then I'm going to pull this down, put it there. And then the last thing I want you to do is to place a marker, generally where this place is in Oregon, because you're so zoomed in it's really difficult to see. And actually I think it would help if I pulled the Willamette River down into this map as well. So I'm going to choose list by list by data, or list by drawing order. And so now I can move things, the order of things, and I'm going to take that Willamette and put it on top of the relief. Ooh, ugly color. I'm going to make it a little smaller and a little nicer blue. There we go. Okay, so I've got the Willamette there, and I want to right click up in that gray space and turn on the draw toolbar, and I don't want the rectangle tool, I want the marker tool, and I'm just going to approximate for this where my map is focused. And purple's not going to show up, so I'm going to do that. Okay, there we go. So there is my first ArcMap, and if I was doing this really well, I saved frequently. Now that I have a map and my MXD, I'm going to export that map as a PDF. So because I choose PDF all the time, apparently it's learned and it's defaulted to PDF. Yours may default to something else. So you want to use this save type as, make sure you pick PDF, and then you want to make sure that you are in the correct folder. And you're not going to see any other documents because what this is looking for is PDFs. So you don't have any PDFs in here right now. So you're going to save that. And then if you're taking this online, you're going to attach that PDF in an email to me. If you're doing this from home or from face-to-face class, you're going to send me that or print that PDF in color. So there you go. Everything you need to know. Let me look at see. I'm going to open with Adobe. So let's take a look at that PDF. There you go. So if I were to edit this, and I would still think this French long lot is too high, floating above my map. I like the white space on either side. That's still too far away. I would move that up a little bit. I might change the background of this, but you don't know how to do that yet, just because it's too conflicting. And then I've got a weird text box right in the middle of my map, so I would have to go back in and find that. That's a funny, it's an interesting thing. I didn't even see that. Anyway, good thing is those are pretty easy to fix, and you would just go back in to your MXD. Let's just do it while we're here. Ah, there it is. I can see it now. Don't know what that is. Click it, delete it. Try to delete it. There we go. Make those adjustments. Okay, so if I've adjusted, I'm going to export it a second time. I'm going to export it as a PDF. and it's going to ask me, do I want to replace that first one, and I say I sure do, and there you go.